Hello aspirants, welcome to Shankaran IAS. This is Charita. Today we are going to have detailed discussion about Women Reservation Bill with Dr. Harnath Reddy sir. Hello sir.
Hi Charita, thank you.
Why does the Women Reservation Bill has been in the news?
See, the Women's Reservation Bill was originally passed in the year 2023. After its passage, this 128th Constitutional Amendment Bill has become 106th Constitutional Amendment Act. So, in the recent past, when there was, in the very recently, when there was a debate on delimitation of constituencies as per the upcoming census, many southern states, led by Stalin, Revant Reddy, they have expressed grave concerns about their reduced representation in the Lok Sabha. So there was an ongoing debate on delimitation. And implementation of Women's Reservation Bill has a link with the exercise of delimitation. Because 106th Amendment very clearly says this Women's Reservation Bill will come into operation after the next delimitation on the basis of the upcoming census. So articles have come in the newspaper saying that the Women's Reservation Bill has to be brought into operation as early as possible by completing the census as soon as possible and also by completing the delimitation exercise as well. And this is the reason why the Women's Reservation Bill has been in the news.
What does the bill say about women in Women Reservation Bill?
So if you read the provisions of the 106th Constitutional Amendment Act, three new articles were inserted in the Constitution of India. Article 330A, Article 332A and Article 334A. If you take Article 330A, it speaks about reserving one-third of the seats to the women in the Lok Sabha. But here you should remember, already scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, they have reservation in Lok Sabha. So that reservation is in proportion to their population. So within the seats reserved for SCs and STs, one-third of them will be made available for SC women and ST women. So that's what Article 330A says. Similarly, if you take Article 332 capital A, it speaks about reserving one-third of the seats for the women in the legislative assemblies in all the 28 states, including the National Capital Territory of Delhi. Here again, it was said that among the seats which are reserved for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, whatever is the number, in that again one-third of the seats which are meant for SCs and STs shall be for women. So which means in the one-third of the seats which are reserved for women in the Lok Sabha and the legislative assemblies, there is representation to SC women, there is representation to ST women. But unfortunately, OBC women did not have representation. Muslim women do not have representation. This is the reason why in the Lok Sabha, two MPs belonging to AIMIM from Hyderabad, they have rejected this bill on the argument that this bill does not provide reservations for OBC women and Muslim women. So the bill confines itself to reservations to SC women and ST women. That's what Article 330A and 332A speaks about. Then what is this Article 334A, capital A? Article 334A speaks about reservations will come into operation after the delimitation exercise based on the new census which is conducted in the upcoming period. And then the reservations which are made available, they will be in implementation for a maximum of 15 years period. Subsequently, the time period for which the reservations will be in operation will be decided by the Indian Parliament through an ordinary law. Then, once a seat is reserved for women, when with respect to Lok Sabha or Legislative Assembly, there will be rotation of the seat. The seat will be rotated every time when there is a delimitation, every time when there is census and followed by delimitation. If delimitation happens once in a decade, then the seat will be reserved for 2 terms, each term being 5 years. So each seat reserved for women will be for 2 terms, that is for 10 years. If a census and a delimitation is done every 10 years, then the seat reserved will be for 2 years. And if a delimitation is not done for years together, then how the situation will be? There is no provision in the 106th Constitutional Amendment Act. So these are the main provisions in the bill. Here we should be careful that The 106th Constitutional Amendment Act does not provide for reservations to women in the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house, and also the legislative councils, which are the upper houses in the at the state level. These are the main provisions in the 106th Constitutional Amendment.
Are there any issues relating to women in Women Reservation Bill?
See, one concern which was raised with respect to women's reservation bill is when this bill was taken up in the parliament, it was passed both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha by the required majority, a majority of the total membership and two-thirds of the members present and voting. Indian National Congress, which is the opposition political party in the Indian Parliament, it says the ratification of 50% of the states is also necessary for this bill, and this was not done. So probably, if it is challenged before the courts, the operation of the bill may get affected. But government has given a clarification. The representation to the states in the Lok Sabha was not changed. Only the composition is being changed. The number of seats which are allotted to the states in the Lok Sabha, that was not affected. So the argument of the government is it is not necessary to get the ratification of 50% of the seats. Even I do agree with the argument of the union government. But let's see if it becomes a litigation, how the Supreme Court will respond, we need to see.
What is the experience at the global level, sir?
See, at the global level, till now, there are around 100 countries at the global level which have given reservations for women. And if you take Rwanda, Rwanda is one of the countries in African continent. In Rwanda, the representation to the women after giving reservations, it has reached 65%. And if you see the recent elections conducted in United Kingdom to the House of Commons, which is the lower house there, even there the women are represented to the extent of 40%. In South Africa, there is a lower house called National Assembly. Even in the National Assembly, women had a representation to the extent of 45%. Similarly, if you take United States of America, there the lower house is called House of Representatives. Here again, you see representation to the women to the extent of 29%. But if you see now in India, that is before the bill is yet to come into operation, the amendment is yet to come into operation. As of now, in the Lok Sabha, the maximum representation to the women has reached 15%. At the state level in the legislative assemblies, it is close to only just 10%. So we have, but with the implementation of the 106th Constitutional Amendment Act, the representation to the women will go beyond 33%. It can reach even up to 40-45%.
What is the impact of women reservation in local bodies, sir?
See, the reservations for women in the Lok Sabha and the legislative assemblies, for that, the inspiration and the motivation comes from local bodies. So in the local bodies, both rural and urban local bodies, women did not have reservation till 1992. So in 1992, through the 73rd Amendment and through the 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts, women were given one-third of the seats in the local bodies. So that's why before 1992, if you see the representation of women in the local bodies, it was merely 3 to 4%. But today, if you see the representation of women, as per the economic survey of 2023-24, the representation of women in the local bodies is close to 46%, which means there was a massive political empowerment of women at the local level because of the 73rd and 74th amendments. It doesn't end at 33%. Bihar is the first state to give reservations to women to the extent of 50% in the local bodies in 2006. Today, out of 28 states, in around 20 states, the reservations to women in the local bodies have exceeded 50%. So that was a phenomenal achievement when it comes to representation to women in the local body.
Why women reservation is only in the Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly, sir?
See, when you compare Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha and the Legislative Assembly and the Legislative Council, Lok Sabha and the Legislative Assemblies, they are lower houses. They are popularly elected houses. So usually when reservation is made as a provision for women, obviously the demand will be for the lower house. Maybe in the beginning, as they are popularly elected through universal adult franchise, it makes a lot of sense to give them reservations in the lower houses, Lok Sabha and Legislative Assemblies. Once this is done adequately, we can think about giving representation to women even in the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house, and also the legislative councils in some of the states where they are in course of time. But as of now, It is the Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies which are really important, being popularly elected houses.
Okay, sir. Thank you for enlightening our aspirants.
Thank you, Charita.